Whether you're a tenant or a landlord, coming to an agreement over any damages or even the general state of the property at the end of the tenancy can be a major cause for concern. A good inventory will address this for both sides, giving an impartial view of the state of the property at the start and end of the tenancy. Today, we're going inside Inventories. Hello, Ian.
Hello.
So you're the operations manager of ARLA.
Yes, that's the Association of Residential Letting Agents, and one of our subsidiary organisations is the Association of Professional Inventory Providers.
So in a nutshell, what exactly is an inventory?
An inventory is a record of all the fixtures and fittings of a property and all the contents of a property, and should show the condition of all those items as well.
Okay, so all of those things should be covered in detail. Do you need an inventory clerk for that?
You don't need an inventory clerk. It's not a legal requirement, in fact, to produce an inventory at all. But best practice is that you have someone who has been trained to produce an inventory, and it is to a standard and a normal pattern, so that it is easy to follow and easy to check.
And how does it help at the end of a tenancy?
At the end of the tenancy, since 2007, there has been what's known as tenancy deposit protection, and lots of the disputes that come up are about the condition of the property at the start of the tenancy, and therefore if you've got an accurate record at the beginning, you've got a good record to refer to at the end.
Okay, so if I'm a tenant and I have a professional inventory done, how does that help me?
It should help to protect your deposit. You should be given a copy of that at the beginning to approve, to sign, saying that you're happy with the contents of it. If you're not, you should be querying it at the time. In particular, where there will be disputes later on are things relative to cleanliness, stains on carpets, marks on walls. So it's giving you the opportunity to say, yes, that is an accurate record. And if you do that at the beginning, that's obviously what's going to be judged on at the end of the tenancy.
How will I know as a tenant if an inventory has been carried out by a professional?
You should ask your agent how it was prepared, whether it was done by an independent inventory clerk, whether it was done by a professional inventory provider, or whether it was a landlord doing it themselves. Lots of agents will also produce an inventory in-house. They'll do it themselves. And there's nothing wrong with any of those methods in law. It's how good it is and the quality of it and how often it has been updated. Has it been specifically prepared for your tenancy?
And as a tenant, is there anything I can do to help this process?
Yes, there is. When you're provided with the inventory, it's to go through it, to check it and to agree it. Too many tenants get a copy of the inventory, don't sign it, don't make any comments, and then at the end of the tenancy, they will have a complaint that the inventory is not a true reflection on the condition of the property.
So be involved and read it.
So it's be involved, be proactive about it. Take the time to do it. A lot of agents will give you 7 or 10 days to check an inventory, get it back to them. Make sure you do get it back to them. Don't let a busy working life get in the road.
Yeah, because it's very important and it saves time later.
It saves money later as well.
Yes. So from a landlord's point of view, why is an inventory important for a landlord?
Landlords are the one whose property will suffer wear and tear, it will suffer damage during a tenancy. Landlords are ones who will be looking for compensation from a tenant for that wear and tear or that damage. If they don't have an accurate record at the beginning, they've nothing to judge it on at the end, and therefore they are very unlikely to get any of the tenant's deposit under tenancy deposit protection.
So is there any reason why they shouldn't do it themselves and save some money?
There's nothing to stop them doing it themselves. Unfortunately, landlords have a habit of missing out large chunks of what should be in an inventory. I personally have seen inventories produced by landlords where there were no floors, there were no ceilings, there were no walls, there were no doors.
So they simply don't know what should be included?
Absolutely.
Yes. So, again, from a landlord's point of view, how can they find out about inventories and how they can be done?
If they're going to be letting the property themselves, they should be looking for a member of ours, of APIP, and if they're using an agent, they should be asking the agent to do the inventory for them.
So how long does an inventory last? Does it need to be updated?
An inventory should be updated before every new tenancy. Obviously, if it's the same tenant that's staying on with a new tenancy, then you don't need to do anything with it. But it should be a fresh inventory for every new tenant.
OK, that's great. That's covered everything. If people want any more information, where can they go?
If they went to our website, www.apip.org.uk, there would be further information there.
That's brilliant, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pauline, your job's an inventory clerk. How would you start when you come into a property like this?
Basically at the front door, which usually leads onto the hallway. And from that point, I would proceed in a set order that I personally use, but other inventory clerks use their own. So it goes door, windows, curtains, ceilings, lights, walls, floor, heating frames, electrics.
In every room?
In every room, and then specialist things, for instance, for a kitchen or a bathroom.
Okay.
So everything's covered.
And photographs?
I do take photographs, a general one of each room, sometimes from a few angles, and then I will home in any problems, such as stains, anything that's just not right with that item.
OK. Well, let's go upstairs and have a look
Okay.
at what some of those things might be.
Okay.
So as you're going around the property, Pauline, are you also looking for general condition?
Yes, I look at the room for general condition, and then I look specifically at each item for the condition of that, and as an experienced clerk you get quite quick at that, really.
This window, for example, I mean, this is really unusual. How would you record that?
You basically just do what you can with words, and most of us have the words we think about it. It's a stained glass window with bullion accents and illustration of flowers.
OK, what
And a
about the
photograph.
damage?
Yeah, there are a couple of cracked panes, I see. You would note them down on the report, but also I would put that back to the letting agent because they really should know about any broken glass in the property.
That's the sort of a damage point, yeah. And something as small as this?
Oh yeah, the scuff on the edge of the windowsill, that would be noted too. Well spotted.
So this is the master bedroom, which all looks very nice indeed.
Yes, this one is in excellent condition, I'd say, but there's always something to spot. And I've spotted something on the carpet there.
Oh, yes.
I would put that down as a couple of 2 half-inch rust-coloured spots beside the door.
Gosh, yeah. Obviously, it is very detailed. You don't miss a thing, do you?
Thank you.
I'll leave you to it.
Thank you.
Bill, I've just been talking to Pauline and she's been looking at the inventory in this really beautiful converted property.
It's super, isn't it? It really is.
Now, your company is an inventory company. What's the first stage of an inventory?
The first stage of an inventory is getting ready for the whole process, which is the inventory, the check-in, the interim inspection and the check-out.
OK, so what happens with the check-in?
The check-in is where the tenant is now meeting the inventory for the first time. The tenant is now being invited to look at the inventory and to agree it. Because at that point there's a sign-off, every page is signed off, ready for the rest of the process.
Right. How long will that take then to do that?
Typically a check-in will take 45 minutes to an hour.
And who will be with the tenant?
We would best advise that's the letting agent who's taking the tenant round the whole property with the inventory in his hand and checking everything.
OK, and the next stage after that?
The next stage is what we call the interim. Halfway through a short hold tenancy, best practice advice from Arla is that there is a interim inspection which looks at the occupancy to make sure they haven't got 30-40 people in.
Yeah.
It looks at the style of occupancy, i.e. if they've agreed to have pets, have they got them?
Yes.
It looks at things like non-smoking and it looks at the general condition.
Whether or not you want to keep the tenants?
It gives the landlord a chance to say, hey, this is not a tenant we'd like to renew with. So the interims are very, very important.
Right.
Typically an interim will take half an hour, 45 minutes.
Right.
It's only a 6-question report.
OK,
Then that's followed, of course, by the checkout.
of course.
Now, the checkout is the moment when the property has been handed back to the landlord in the condition that it was passed over to the tenant
OK, at the check-in stage.
at the check-in stage. So here we're now going to perhaps have disputes, but if the checkout's done well, it means that the landlord and the tenant shouldn't have any disputes.
So it's the quality of the documentation, the check-in and the check-out, which means that there shouldn't be any disputes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Bill, thanks very much.
Thank you.
For more information on inventories, take a look at www.apip.org.uk.